So what are your education plans then?
Well, actually, my focus on education is informed by my own background and my own experience. If I look back in my own life, yeah, I've done well for myself now, thankfully, but I had a lot of challenges, but they were overcome largely by the focus on education, both by my family and the schools that I went to, and it was transformative for me. So I think schools, colleges, universities, all taken together, are the biggest engine of social justice in our country today, and it's something I want us to take as a country, much, much more seriously. So what I'd like to do, I mean, there's a lot, but what I'd like to do is to make sure we are properly investing in our schools and our further education colleges. I want to see a multi-year, multi-billion-pound boost in spending and investment in schools and really change the life chances of so many young people.
Sounds expensive. Are you going to raise taxes to pay for it?
No, I won't. What I'll do, and I've thought about this very carefully, I spent years working in finance, I spent time in the Treasury, I was also business secretary responsible for further education, and I've taken account of the experience. What I would do is I would slow down the rate of debt reduction, government debt reduction, as a proportion of GDP.
More borrowing.
Well, no, debt will still be coming down as a proportion of GDP. I would just slow down the rate of reduction. I think it's important that we head in the right direction, but by slowing that down, it could free between 15 to 25 billion pounds a year of spending, which won't all go into education. There's other priorities like local government and crime, but there's enough there to reinvest.
So has the Chancellor pushed things too far then, in your view, with austerity?
No, I think that this Chancellor, the Chancellor before him, if you look back at 2010 and what was inherited, they were the right policies for that time, but I want to be looking ahead. I think we need to reset our relationship in so many areas. Education is one of them. And if I can say something, when I was growing up, I remember education for me. This is what my parents really pushed. I'd just get home from school, and my mum would say, "Have you done your homework yet?" I'd just go in through the door. I'd be marched to the library at weekends. My mum would be looking over my shoulder.
And these are books she couldn't read. She didn't speak English.
She couldn't read. She was at a school in Pakistan, and girls at that time didn't go to school. But she's actually the cleverest woman I know. But she couldn't read. But she'd still be looking. She'd say, "Have you read that word? Did you read that chapter properly?" And that's how I was brought up. And I'm also well aware that many people don't have strong families like I was lucky to have. So I also, at the same time, want to focus on families and how we can make them stronger, because there's too much family breakdown in our country as well, and I want to see how we can strengthen families too.
I mean, you were saying about the importance of education, but your own education perhaps wasn't, well, it was very contrasting to other of your colleagues. At school, you were advised to become a TV repairman, though. It doesn't sound like it was perfect, the comprehensive that you went to.
It wasn't. At that time, the school wasn't very good. And not only that, I was told that I couldn't study maths at O-level, so I had to get my dad to pay for it. I was told that I could only study 2 A-levels when I knew that I was told that you had to have 3 to go to university. So I had to change schools and go to a local college. But these are struggles I don't want other people to have. So, my vision for this country, what I want to see for this country is that people that have had or have similar challenges like those I've had, I want to level the playing field. I want them to have much more equality of opportunity. I want them to know that if they have a go, they can succeed.
OK, now I want to move on to Brexit, because this is clearly going to be top of anyone's in tray, whoever becomes the next Prime Minister. So what, briefly, is your plan?
My plan is to, first of all, accept the realities. I totally accept what you've said. This is going to be the #1 thing for any new Prime Minister. And what I mean by accepting the reality is that you've got this Parliament with this Speaker. We know the Parliament is divided, and so you have to deal with that as you find it. So I will then turn to the only thing that's got through this Parliament so far, which is this withdrawal agreement with changes to the backstop, a time limit, or some kind of proper exit mechanism. And I would take my debate to Ireland, because I think the key is Ireland, and I would work with them, and I would also do something different, because I realise you can't get the same thing to work if you don't change something. So what I would do is I would offer to pay for the new alternative arrangements on the border. It would be in the hundreds of millions. I'd propose to do that because economically it's right and morally it's right.
I just want to stop there. The problem with the Irish situation isn't money. It's peace. I mean, people aren't worried about the thought of a border or any kind of infrastructure in Ireland because it's going to cost too much. They're worried that people are going to get killed over it. I mean, it's the wrong solution, isn't it?
Well, actually, I'm acutely aware of the situation on the border. As Home Secretary, being responsible for security throughout the country, I'm acutely aware of that. And that is something that every single one of us has to take very seriously. And that is why I've done my homework on this. What is needed is, everyone agrees, you need some, even the Irish government agrees. In principle, it agrees that even if the backstop happened, it cannot persist indefinitely, that it will have to be replaced with alternative arrangements. And that means the border has no infrastructure on it. It remains an open border as it is today. Now, the key is, how can that be done? I've got Border Force in my department. They've been doing work on this for months. It can be done. It can be done with existing technology. It can even be done in a couple of years. What you need is both sides to work together.
You know, you're talking about facing up to the realities here. You've said before you want to see honest and credible proposals, but I just put to you that many would think these are not credible proposals. Just to look, for example, Karen Wheeler quit this week as boss of the UK Border Delivery Group. She said there's no technology solution which would mean you could not have a hard border. There's no magic solution. If there was, trust me, you would have found it. I mean, many would say you're relying on a unicorn.
Well, I'm not. This isn't. Of course, you don't need a magic solution for this. The solution exists. We've done the homework on this. You know, Border Force doesn't just.
So why, if the solution exists, why hasn't Theresa May pulled it out of her back pocket?
Because I think the key is, I think most people understand you need cooperation on both sides of the border to make it happen. You need both sides to be able to sit down, have some working group, and make this happen.
So why can you do that when she couldn't?
Because I will change the dynamic, and I will do that by offering the money to pay for the border. And let me just say, it is really important that it is justified that we do that, because economically, if that unlocks a deal, we'll have a mini economic boom in this country if we get a deal, and that will pay for that. And also, because we are both committed to peace and the Good Friday Agreement, it's morally right that we do this.
OK, very quickly, can you guarantee that if you're Prime Minister, will leave the EU by the 31st of October?
What I can guarantee is that the policy of any government that I lead will be to leave on October the 31st. We will do everything in our power to leave on October the 31st. And that does mean, for me, of course, I want a deal. I will do everything I can to have a deal. But if I have to choose between no deal and no Brexit, I would pick no deal.
OK. Now, I want to talk to you about a story that's been dominating the newspapers the last couple of days.
I wonder what that is.
Yes, you probably can guess. Michael Gove admitting that he has done cocaine in the past, something he says that he regrets. Firstly, have you done drugs?
No.
And do you think it's acceptable for someone who is running to be Prime Minister to have done drugs, given the fact that they're illegal?
Look, it's not for me to pass judgment on your fellow candidates. Any Tory MP, if they can get the nominations, they can run as a candidate, and they've got to make their case. You know, I will make mine. They can make their case.
At the same time, you're Home Secretary.
Well, as Home Secretary, I'm very happy to speak about drugs. I'm not wanting to speak about any individual. I don't think that's appropriate. But when it comes to drugs, and especially people have been talking recently about middle-class drug use. I've talked about it a number of times. That it is people do need to know. It doesn't matter whether you're middle class or not. Anyone that takes Class A drugs. They need to think about that supply chain that comes from Colombia, let's say, to Chelsea, and the number of lives that are destroyed along the way.
So people who take drugs have a responsibility, do they, to think of
anyone who takes drugs should be thinking about how they are not just hurting themselves, but how they are destroying so many countless lives on the way. And there are people that they have their organic food, they boast about buying fair trade, they talk about climate change, and at the same time, come Friday or Saturday night, they're ordering Class A drugs. And they should be thinking about the impact they're having, especially on children, and with the rise in county gangs and the horrific abuse I've seen as Home Secretary of young children that are being trafficked into this trade. So people anywhere, should be thinking about the impact they're having on others, absolutely.
OK. Now, one of your biggest decisions as Home Secretary was to strip the Islamic State bride, Shamima Begum, of her British citizenship. A fairly controversial decision at the time. And of course, shortly after her baby died, a 3-week-old baby. What did you feel when you learned that that baby had died?
Well, I can't talk about any particular case, whether it's to do with deprivation of citizenship and things. They're not appropriate, especially if there might be legal action going on. But I'm happy to talk about that sort of more generally.
You can talk about your feelings, though, can't you? When you learn that baby died.
I can't get into a case. It's not appropriate. There's a legal case, and it wouldn't be appropriate as Home Secretary to get into the details of a particular action. But you've asked me it's a very important question, nevertheless, and which is about protecting our country from terrorists. As Home Secretary, the difference between, I would say, this job and I've run 3 other departments is that it really bears on you every single second of every day that you have to take on the responsibility of protecting this country. And that does involve taking some tough decisions to do what you can to protect British citizens. And if that means that the only way that you can keep out a terrorist from this country that could otherwise come back and harm others and indeed kill others, and the only way to do that is to remove their citizenship under the full advice that you've received from intelligence services, from legal advisors, from Home Office officials, then that is what you do. And I would not hesitate to do that all over again.
Were you upset?
If it would lead to the protection of British citizens.
Were you upset when you learned that the baby had died?
As I say, I can't talk about a case, but if you're of course, but let me just say that there are innocent children that have been either taken by their parents to Syria to fight for terrorist groups, or they've been born there, and of course they are innocent victims in this conflict, and the people that are responsible for their deaths are their parents that took them there in the first place, or gave birth to them there.
Now, the Muslim Council of Britain, Britain's largest Muslim organisation, has said that there should be an investigation into Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. I just want to ask if you think that the Conservative Party is ready for a leader who comes from a Muslim background to be its leader.
I think the country, not just the Conservative Party, I think the country is ready for leaders, including in politics, and we've seen in other walks of life, from all sorts of backgrounds. And in the Conservative Party, already I'm proud and I've been privileged to be. I think in fact I know I am the first person of that's not white that's holding a great office of state. I'm very proud about that. But I think it's great that that's happened in the Conservative Party. I think the country's ready. I actually think when I compare Britain to so many other countries, and I travel as ministers and I see ministers from other countries, there's no doubt in my mind we are the most successful multiracial democracy in the world.
Have you experienced any racism in Parliament or on your journey to Parliament?
Not in Parliament, not since I've been in politics. Growing as a child, absolutely. Sadly, many times, and those are the kind of things that you never forget. But I do.
What sticks in your mind then?
Oh, well, being called Packy, being attacked by NF skinheads, when I was younger and things, and punching back a few times, and something I don't want anyone to go through. But those are the kind of things you never forget. And I think it charges you up to want to do more about social justice and fighting hate crime than before. But if I can also say that, sometimes I do think of myself as a bit of an outsider. It's not just because of race or it could be my working class background, the schools that I went to. I do think that, and I think sometimes there's a strong case to have an outsider to actually become the leader, because it can shake things up. Yesterday, I was very lucky to get the endorsement of Ruth Davidson, a real election winner.
You haven't got enough MPs now at the minute, though, have you?
Well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. These things can change very quickly. But Ruth Davidson, I think by her own admission, says someone who was a bit of an outsider when she was picked to lead the Scottish Conservative Party, and look what happened and how it was transformed. And sometimes I think when your party is fighting to be heard, one of the best ways to get your message out there is to do something different, pick a bit of an outsider, and then you get people to listen to you all over again.
Just briefly, if you want people to listen to you, Sky News is going to be holding a live head-to-head debate between the final 2 candidates in the race. If you're one of them, will you commit here to taking part?
Absolutely. I think it's great that you're doing it. Thank you very much.
OK. Thank you very much, Home Secretary.
Great. Thank you.